Now let's start this part with two fun clips from an interview that Callas did in 1969. It was in a French program called L'invité du dimanche. So the guest of what's Sunday in English. And this will enlighten us just a bit, will give us the first reason why I think we perceive her as being so excellent.
Non, non, je ne suis pas forcée. Non. C'est un amour, il faut le faire.
C'est un sacrifice souvent.
Ce n'est pas un sacrifice. Qui aime le métier? C'est un sacrifice supporter beaucoup de bêtises des autres et aussi de toi, parce que hélas, nous aussi, nous faisons beaucoup de bêtises, y compris moi. Mais notre devoir avec amour, ce n'est pas un sacrifice. Que voulez-vous que je fasse d'autre? Si j'en ai pas un intérêt dans la vie autre que mon chant ou mon travail, j'aurais trouvé autre chose. J'aurais été une mère j'aurais eu des enfants, j'aurais été la même chose dans ma famille, je pense. Ou j'aurais joué le piano, ou je ne sais pas quoi. Je crois que dans tous les métiers, quoi que ce soit un métier, même à nettoyer cette table, on peut trouver quand même à le faire bien et quelqu'un à le faire mal. De là, on n'échappe pas. Ce n'est pas un sacrifice, ça, c'est un devoir.
Tout à l'heure, vous disiez, si j'époussetais cette table, je serais la même. Je me demande
oui.
si vous étiez femme de ménage, est-ce que vous auriez même vu de la vie?
Oh, oui, pourquoi pas. C'est la même chose. Redimensionner le tout, mettre en petit, l'autre en grand, c'est la même chose.
Oui, ça c'est très beau.
N'est-ce pas?
C'est très beau ce que tu dis.
Je crois que c'est très vrai. Et ce n'est pas question de beauté. C'est question que chacun doit connaître bien son métier, quoi que ça soit. Il ne faut pas avoir honte d'être petit, parce que le petit doit être grand dans sa manière. Et le grand doit être gentil au petit dans sa manière.
Yes, I love that. And it's really cute that the filmmaker Luchino Visconti, who was sitting right next to her and they were friends, he even thought that this idea that Callas just shared was very beautiful. And it's true, she put it very simply and eloquently. And I think that this is the first key to her mindset. Maybe people talk too much about mindset these days, but we can't ignore the fact that it is a very important part of living a fulfilling life and achieving excellence in anything you do. So I think this shows us that Callas really understood the importance of humility in work and in life in general. It doesn't mean, though, that she would have just toned herself down and diminished her persona. No, she still reached for excellence in everything she did, wanted to be her authentic self, but also recognized that if and when she got some glory and praise for what she did, she didn't want to be absorbed in the pride of it, even though you should be proud of what, or you can and you want to be proud of things you've accomplished, but she didn't want to dwell in it too much because she also wanted to be able to accept criticism from others. Even though she would be at the top of her game, there's still some things you can always improve, obviously. So she knew it would mean that she has to swallow her pride in some instances to know if she's moving in the right direction with her interpretations, for example, in her work. And that's something that many people who are on the top don't necessarily realize. But Callas realized that the only way to stay on top is to have the humility all the time in order to improve. So the main idea here is that we want to aim to do things the best we can, no matter what it is, big or small. We don't want to take the path of least resistance. I like that this expression in English. Another one that's similar is that we're not looking for the easy way out in everything. It means that we are taking ownership for our work, no matter how small it is. And this sort of an attitude made Callas an A player in her field. And on top of that, it probably also made her a more fulfilled person. She felt fulfilled about her work because she took ownership and did the best she could. And then if it succeeded, it was just a cherry on top of the thing, basically. Now, you've probably experienced something similar, that you experience joy from doing something well, and then it leads to other great things because you actually took pleasure in it and took ownership. And I want to cultivate a similar attitude myself. I think this is the lesson that I want to take from Callas in this case, that I want to remind myself it's already a privilege and a pleasure to learn how to do something well, whatever it is. For example, now I'm exploring these ideas and I want to do it the best I can. And then it's only a plus if I happen to rewarded for it. The same idea is also conveyed in this book by Cal Newport called So Good They Can't Ignore You, or something like that. I haven't read it yet, but the idea from what I've heard in his podcast and stuff is that when you get so good at something and just focus on that, people can't ignore you then, and then they will reward you for it too. The only way really to succeed is to just trust in this process, that once you do something well enough and you have a good direction, you everything's aligned, the reward will come. Now here's another clip from 1967 when Callas was interviewed by a man called Edward Downes.
As the great artist and the glamorous personality and so on, and I think it's so easy to think
Well, we
that
are
you
servants,
just burst
frankly.
upon the scene and...
Well, we are just servants of art. That is the truth about the whole thing.
well, I'm
We
sure that-
serve art, and that is our first purpose. Now, if you do that, everything comes automatic. You're great, you're famous, you have money, but the work is hard in the beginning, during, and after. As soon as you're applauded and everybody has hailed you, you go home, and then, as I said before, you calculate what you did, what you shouldn't have done, and you say, all right, tomorrow's another day. So you see, that's the way I am. That's the way I've been brought up. That was the way great artists were once upon a time.
Well, it certainly had magnificent results.
Yes, magnificent results indeed, Edward Downes. Now, it's true that in this particular interview, how she puts this thought is quite a bleak tone, a tone of forced discipline and suffering that we really don't want to have in life. I believe she's referencing more towards the idea of effort in general. We need to have effort, that's for sure. But it doesn't mean that we can't be, or that we shouldn't be, kind to ourselves and not beat ourselves up about stuff that's already happened. And yeah, it's always just better to move on and give yourself another chance. So I would sum up this thought in the way that, yes, we don't want to take the path of least resistance, but we don't want to take the path of most resistance either. Just plain old resistance. We want that resistance because we want to solve problems, and that's what brings meaning to our lives, to have some sort of resistance we're fighting, and then at the end of the day, down the line, we get the results. We can be proud of the results we had. Preferably, we want to be fighting against the sort of resistance in our craft that when we fight it, it has potential compounding returns too. But it's not always the case. For example, in her job, she didn't have like monetary compounding returns really, because she got paid once off for her performances. But the strength of her personal brand did compound over time. Yeah. I think there's also this author, I can't remember the name, who has written this book called The War of Art, I think, and he talks more about this idea of resistance. I haven't read that book, at least yet, but the general idea is, of course, that there's always this resistance that we're fighting in whatever we're creating, and it makes it fun. But let's discuss more the idea of serving art in the next part.